Humans have been on this earth for hundreds and thousands of years. We have survived epidemics, wars, mass extinction, and the most devastating of disasters. We have leveraged every single resource to make this towering civilization as it is today. But we don't realize that for the time being, we have only one earth and we are burning it. You know, every time you throw a plastic bag out, every time you burn something, you aren't just polluting. You are striking a nail in your coffin, digging your own grave, and picking a stick for your own cremation. Saving environment isn't just about planting trees and eating vegetables. It's about survival. It's about not dying from hunger. It's about preventing the time of people killing each other for food. It's about you. It's about how you can save all this from happening. It's about how you and the things you do will potentially decide the future of humanity.
Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Now let's put a limelight on the topic inspiring stories with the message that one can bring positive change in the society. I am Devparna Sarkar, and today through this presentation, I would like to drive your attention towards an inspiring life story of Jadav Payeng, the forest man of India. Jadav Payeng has received doctorate degree from Assam Agricultural University. He has single-handedly planted a forest in the middle of a barren wasteland. And this is his story.
Payeng, the forest man of India. It was the scorching summer of 1978 when Jadav Payeng, a missing tribal teenage boy, returned to his birthplace at Arunasapori, a river island on the Brahmaputra. He had just completed his class 10th exams and was about to loop strangely back into a different phase of his life. But no one could have predicted how different. On reaching home, Payeng witnessed a sight that shook him to the core. More than 100 snakes curved, looped, and twisted lifelessly on the deserted sandbar. The snakes had been washed up to the sandbar by floods and had died without tree cover. Stressed and seeking counsel, he met the villagers of the Deori community nearby. They exhorted him to grow trees to save the reptiles. For where there are trees, there are birds, and where there are birds, there will be birds' eggs and fledgling food for snakes and their ilk. Along with their native wisdom, the villagers offered the boy 50 seeds and 25 bamboo plants. Payeng, just 15 or 16, set out all alone in April 1979 to plant life on the tough terrain of the eroded island, covered with sand and silt. He sowed the seeds and shoots. 36 years later, he has ripped a forest. Like all truly great people, Payeng, now in his mid-50s, hailed as the forest man of India, planter of a jungle, is innocent of his feet. I never thought that my small initiative would make such a difference one day, he says. He can lay claim to 1,360 acres of dense, defined forest. In the fertile period between April and June, he planted the forest. Let's hear this in his own words.
साल भर 3 महीने अप्रैल मई जून 3 महीना ना मौसम का टाइम ने पेड़ रुपते जंगल 550 हेक्टेयर बना लिया। आप लोग जो मकान बनाया, मेरा घर 550 हेक्टेयर है।
Local inhabitants nicknamed him Mulai, meaning forest, and dubbed his woodland the Mulai forest. Jadav Payeng has inspired millions of us with his work. He has selflessly worked for our Mother Earth. Similarly, we should also do small initiatives which would leave a great impact in the future. Lastly, let's make a count on his achievements. Jadav Payeng has received India's highest civilian awards. He has been awarded with Padma Shri and also felicitated with Commonwealth Point of Light Award. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. I am Akriti Rajput of class 12th A3 and today I am going to introduce you to some of our generation kids who are really bothered about the climatic changes happening. Nowadays, these teeny tiny kids are also so concerned about the environment and I am amazed by the fact. So I am going to share these amazing facts with you all today. Starting with Amira Chawla. Did you guys had pollution holidays? Because I have had them and I enjoyed them sometimes. But this little Amira doesn't seem to enjoy them. She just cannot understand why she cannot go out and play with her friends without a mask. Obviously. She wonders if her parents also lived the same way. Abid Bhalla, an 18-year-old, describes himself as a student environmentalist. He tells us about one of his biggest projects called Swachh Chetna, which is an alliance between Delhi Metro and his former school. They involved various students from various schools and undertook the cleanliness and plantation drives at different Delhi Metro stations. Haziq Kazi, an incident influenced him to become an innovator and a climate change activist. In 2013, July, a young whale hit upon the shores of northern Netherlands. Surprisingly, it was found to be dead because of intestinal blockage with 2 hose pipes, 9-meter long rope and 37 pounds of plastic. This led to the innovation of Kazi, a prototype surface cleaner shape which can suck out the plastic from the surface. Okay, now imagine yourself going on a vacation with the family, spending time in forest reserves and watching birds and waterfalls. Lovely experience, isn't it? Now come back to the city. Seeing the destruction that we have been doing to our society, Aman decided to file a petition to the Prime Minister and the Union Minister for Housing and Urban Development, urging them to take note of the environment concerns that we are living with. Also, managed to gather around 3.3 lakhs of signatures for his campaign. Identifying single-use plastic to be one of the biggest pollutants, Aditya also decided to file a petition before the National Green Tribunal urging e-commerce platforms to rethink the amount of plastic they use. Also requested plastic bottling companies to either switch from plastic bottles to the glass bottles or provide an undertaking that will ensure 100% collection and recycling of plastic bottles sold by them. At the end, I just want to say, following some sustainable practices and showing a little bit of concern to our environment will surely lead us to a better planet. Thank you.
A flower represents a good life that sprouts from earth and grows up to spread happiness. We all offer flowers at temples, mosques and gurdwaras as a gesture of offering the best in us. Showering flowers is a religious ritual in India. These flowers are a symbol of devotion and reverence, and it is believed that the flowers should be discarded into water bodies to respect their sanctity. But no one thinks of the aftermath. Sadly, these sacred flowers rot in rivers, killing fishes and creating a havoc in the fragile ecosphere of the water body and cause enormous pollution. The pesticides and chemical fertilizers used to grow flowers mixes with the river water, making it highly toxic. Every year, about 800,000 tons of flower waste is dumped in the Indian rivers, choking them to death.
The Ganges, which is virtually synonymous with Indian civilization, is dying. Every year, 80 lakh metric tons of waste flowers are dumped into the river Ganges. Toxic arsenic, lead, and cadmium from harmful farm runoffs, pesticides, and insecticides used to grow flowers mixes with the river water, making it highly poisonous. These major pollutants affects the lives of 400 million people linked to contracting dysentery, cholera, hepatitis, and severe diarrhea, which are the leading causes of child mortality across India and Bangladesh. Cleaning the holy Ganga is no simple task and has been the objective of many activists, environmentalists, and politicians, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Help Us Green, funded by two 26-year-olds in 2015, collects floral waste from temples, mosques, gurdwaras along the Ganges and converts it into natural and chemical-free lifestyle products. Currently, the startup collects around 1.5 tons of floral waste from Kanpur and 8 tons from Varanasi. The waste is composted and converted into plant fertilizers and incense sticks. Not only does it keep the floral waste, often laden with chemical-induced pesticides, from ending up in the rivers, the startup has also generated employment opportunities for the local residents. With an initial investment of just Rs 80,000, the duo had to use innovative methods while starting out in order to save money. Even packaging in the initial days was done using discarded boxes from a local liquor shop packaging unit. They also made a deal with the owner of the farm they operated from to provide 2 tons of compost every month in exchange for them using the farm. In addition, they promised to assist him in getting his farm EcoCert certified, making it Kanpur's first EcoCert certified farm. Whenever there is an image of God on a poster or card, Indians find it difficult to throw it away. They thought they could solve this problem. They use tulsi seed cellulose with the packaging cellulose. So once someone has used their product, they can simply sew the packaging, water it, and basil saplings will grow from it. Quite an innovative way to reduce packaging waste. One cannot deny that the polluted environment in urban India is a ticking time bomb. Prolific industrialization for the growth of national economy has apparently put at risk even a breath of fresh air in the Indian cities. Lack of public participation in the implementation of stringent laws to fight environmental pollution is another huge concern. The public health in India is at serious risk. The government is working to implement solutions on a larger canvas. The most significant aspect is encouraging the Indians to give away their age-old practices, which are by and large hazardous to the environment. The Sanskrit phrase Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means that the world is like a family, must come alive in the minds and heart of each one of us to save this beautiful and serene land of traditions.
Hello everyone, I am Arnav Kumar, and through this presentation, I would like to tell you about the inspiring and motivational story of the Akshar School of Assam and its founders, Parmita and Mazin. Parmita had received her master's degree from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, whereas Mazin had done his graduation from the University of Maryland College of Park, and he also received Multi-Ethnic Student Education Award for his outstanding academic achievement. Now, they both are the co-founders of the Akshar Foundation. In this school, every student has to deposit 25 plastic items weekly, and everyone has to make eco-bricks from these plastics, as they understand that plastic harms our Mother Nature. Now, let's hear what they say about that.
A vast wealth of untapped potential. If every school in the world takes steps like these, they can improve the quality of education and help the world face challenges ahead at the same time. Schools can become centers for community transformation by incubating small business, by providing job skills, and placing students into entry-level jobs. For example, we partnered with a solar panel firm to develop a solar technician course for 14 to 16-year-olds, so they can be ready to start earning for their families and have a high-skilled career at the same time.
So, I would like to conclude by saying that there are many such people in this world who are determined to work for the environment and contribute something which can be beneficial to the society. So if they can do it, why can't we? So let's work together to make this planet a better place to live. Thank you so much.
Technology is a double-edged sword. Although it does harm the environment directly or indirectly, it also provides a set of solutions. So in this segment, we are going to go through some of the solutions provided by the advancement of technology.
Miyawaki technology. It is an afforestation technique that uses native species to create dense multi-layered forest within a short span of 20 to 30 years, while natural forest grows in 200 to 300 years. It is also known as potted seedling method. In the Miyawaki method, various species of plants are planted close to each other, so the plant receives sunlight only from the top and grow upwards instead of sideways. Hence, the plantation becomes 30 times more denser and grows 10 times more faster in comparison to normal forest. Also, they became maintenance free after a span of 3 years. The minimum size of the forest should be 4 by 3 meters, and it should receive sunlight at least 8 hours a day. It was pioneered by Akira Miyawaki. Slowly and gradually, the use of Miyawaki technology is increasing around the world, including India. For instance, like Shubhendu Sharma, who was working at Toyota India when he first met Akira Miyawaki. He got so much fascinated by his ideology of Miyawaki technique that he gave up his career and became an agriculturist and decided to plant trees for the rest of his life. He had successfully grown 48 forests around India in just a span of 4 years. He had grown his first forest in the backyard of his own house. He had helped factories, farms, school, homes, resort, apartment buildings, public park and even a zoo to grow a mini forest by the help of Miyawaki technology. Steps to grow a mini forest using Miyawaki method are: Step 1. Determine the soil texture and quantity. Check if the texture of the soil is sandy, clay or loamy. Add perforators like biomass, rice, husk, wheat husk in order to allow plant roots grow quicker. Water nutrients like sugarcane stalk or cocoa peat should be added to ensure moisture and water. Add organic fertilizers like manure and vermicompost to nourish the soil along with mulch. Step 2. Select the tree species for plantation. Make a list of all native species of plants in that area. Check their availability in the nursery according to their age and sapling height. Ideal height is to be 60 to 80 cm. Choose 5 different species which will constitute 40 to 50% of the forest. Step 3. Design the forest. Create a 4-layered plantation where shrubs up to 6 feet grow from first layer, trees up to 25 feet from second layer, trees up to 40 feet from third layer, and canopy trees from fourth layer. Step 4. Preparing the area. Site inspection is to be done to check the plant watering facility, to remove weeds, debris and stones, to allocate area for storage and equipments. Step 5. Plant the trees. 3 to 5 saplings are planted per square meter and a thin layer of mulch is spread over soil. Step 6. Tie the plants to the sticks. The plants should be tied to support sticks with a jute string to prevent them from stopping or bending in the initial months of plantation. Step 7. Water and monitor the plantation. Water the forest at least once a day. For first 2 years, there should be no weeds and no use of pesticides and inorganic fertilizer. Check the plantation after every 2 months. Some benefits of Miyawaki technology are: First, 30 times more trees are planted as compared to conventional plantation technique. Second, it has proven to work worldwide irrespective of soil and climatic conditions. Third, a 300% increase in plant as compared to conventional plantation techniques, etc.
Increasing population and limiting land resources available for agriculture definitely demands for new and innovative techniques that can solve this problem of food. One of such techniques is hydroponics, where we grow plants without soil and only with the help of nutrient solution. Let us talk about hydroponics in detail. I am Ayush Sinha of class 11th A3 and I am doing project on hydroponics. What is hydroponics? If you have ever placed a plant clipping into a glass of water in the hopes that it will develop roots, you have practiced a form of hydroponics. Hydroponics is a branch of agriculture where plants are grown without the use of soil. The nutrients that the plants normally derive from the soil are simply dissolved into water instead. Depending on the type of hydroponic system used, the plant's roots are suspended in, flooded with, or misted with the nutrient solution so that the plant can derive the elements it needs for growth. Let us discuss the benefits of hydroponics. First and the foremost benefit is it requires no soil. Second, it is water saving as water is recycled again and again. Third, hydroponics leads in higher yields. Fourth, plants grow very fast in this system. I have practiced a form of hydroponics. Let's see how mint will grow. First, I took a plastic container and made holes on its lid so that I can put stems of mint in it. Then I took many mint plants and cut the leaves to see whether new leaves will grow or not. I put the stems in the holes and filled the container with water. Then I covered it with lid. Now, some part of stem is immersed in water. After every 3 days, we need to change the water of the container for freshness of water. Now let us see the growth of plant after 16 days. You will notice many small leaves and few medium-sized leaves has appeared on the stem from the nodes. Let me show you the part of plant inside water. You will observe that roots have appeared on the stem. In few more days, the plant will appear similar as it was in the beginning. My project is without adding nutrients. If we add nutrients, it will grow much better. Thank you for watching my project.
Good morning, this is Geeta Dayadav of 12A3. I am here to present my project on saving our environment. It revolves around cactus leather. Cactus leather is a vegan substitute for the animal leather that we know. But for us to know what is cactus leather, first we need to know what is leather. Leather is a strong, flexible, durable material obtained from tanning or chemical treatment of animal skins and hides to prevent decay. Commonly obtained from cattle, sheep, goats, and etc. Here are some pictures of the commonly used objects made from leather and what is its effect on our water bodies and environment in general. As we have seen the pictures of disaster in the previous slide, let's go over the environmental effects of animal leather industry. According to the Sustainable Apparel Coalition,
Adrian, I'm Marte, and we make vegan leather.
The fashion industry is the second largest polluter in the world. Much of world's leather comes from a cow, and that cow has to drink a lot of water, 1,800 gallons. And then leather has to be tanned, which needs even more water. And it is treated with toxic chemicals which hurt the environment and make it non-biodegradable. This contributes to 100,000 tons of waste. Adrian worked in auto industry and Marte in fashion industry, so they both were aware of environmental impact and decided it was time to change. Replacement for leather meant less harm to cows and other animals. The answer was right in front of them. Cactus is the most abundant plant in Mexico. It's everywhere. Cactus is actually good for skin, does not require a lot of water, and since it absorbs carbon dioxide, it's good for the environment. In a matter of months, Adrian and Marte left their jobs and dedicated 100% of their time and effort to this project. They developed the perfect solution. In their patented process, you cut the leaves, clean them, mash it, dry it for 3 days, mix it with non-toxic chemicals, then shape it into any texture or color you want. As seen in the above slide, the company founded by Adrian Lopez and Marte Cazares, known as Deserto, was founded in 2019. Deserto offers a cruelty-free and sustainable leather alternative without any toxic chemicals and PVC. The Mexican brand has come to revolutionize the production of leather both at home and abroad, becoming a new favorite of luxury in the furniture, automotive, and fashion industries. Finally, the environmental solutions it provides. The leather produced is breathable, doesn't use pesticides or insecticides, sustainable for the environment, bacteria resistant, hard to stain, toxicity free, plastic free, easy to clean, needs less irrigation, and animal cruelty free. Finally, thank you for watching and have an absolutely astonishing day.
Hello, I'm Charvi Negi from class 10B5 from St. Teresa School, and here I'm going to tell you how bioscience helps to clean our environment and makes the world more sustainable. Our environment. The environment provides us the basic elements: air, water, food, and land, which are essential for life to survive. Human interacts with the environment and modify it as per their needs and make it worse. To make our environment sustainable, science reducing the impact of global warming, helping in adapting to climate change, cleaning up polluted areas, and taking care of our own health. Some of these areas where biotechnology has proved very effective role in environmental cleanup are landfill technologies. Here scientists clone the bacteria and reproduce in large quantities and apply to the specific sites. This ensures rapid degradation of the waste materials. Some type of landfills are municipal, industrial, hazardous, and green waste. Biomining. It is a technique of extracting metals from the ores and other solid materials, typically using prokaryotes, fungi, or plants. This technique is one of the best for our environment saving. Pesticides. These are obtained from the toxins found in the biological organisms that are harmful to the pests that invade plants. They do not affect the plants but reduce soil pollution. Hence, farming requires biopesticides for good crop production and saves the environment from the use of harmful pesticides. Biosensors. Biosensors are the devices that can detect the quantities of pollutant of environment. When used in a polluted site, can signal by emitting light, which would suggest that the low levels of inorganic substances are present at the polluted site. Bioremediation. Bioremediation is a process where biological organisms are used to remove an environmental pollutant by metabolic process. It is a technique that breaks down harmful materials into less toxic or non-toxic materials. Simple things that we can do to protect our environment: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Cut down on what you throw away. Volunteer for cleanups in your community. Educate. Conserve water. Choose sustainable. Shop wisely. Use long-lasting light bulbs. Plant a tree.
I am here to tell you about the novel concept of towers that make the air free of smog. Hello everyone, I am Shrishti Kumud of class 12th A3 of St. Teresa School. This is how the smog-free tower looks like. And these are the contents we are going to go through in this presentation. In one of the world's most polluted cities, there's a futuristic tower called Smog Tower that sucks up smog, turns it into clean air, and filters out the smog particles so they can be turned into diamonds. Now let's know what actually is smog. This is what smog looks like. Smog is a pollutant that reduces visibility. It is a mixture of smoke and fog. When the smoke from coal burning reacts with sunlight, smog is formed. Sulfurous smog is called London smog, caused from sulfur oxides created on burning of coal. Photochemical smog. It is called Los Angeles smog. Nitrogen oxides are responsible for its formation. Also, it's called summer smog. Harmful effects of smog. It causes irritation in eye and nose. Toxic particles enter into lungs and causes respiratory diseases and even death. Smoke-free tower. Designed by Dan Rusgard, 23 feet tall smoke-free tower vacuums the smog and it collects particles of PM 2.5 and PM 10. Working of the smog-free tower, it sucks the dirty air, create field of ion which are dragged to the ground as ground is made up of negatively charged ions and clean air is atomized. It can purify 30,000 cubic meters of air by consuming just 30 watts of power. Advantages of smog-free tower. Such towers can be placed in open spaces with no need of special arrangement to be made for the source of power. Apart from reducing pollution, this tower will give you diamonds. Sooty particles filtered from smog-free tower are compressed for 30 minutes and turned into dark boxy gems. Black diamonds to be used in jewelries. Here you can see Dan Rusgard with a ring made out of smog-free diamonds in his hand.
Hello everyone.
So here is the model of smog-free tower that I made. This tower comprises a series of specially adapted greenhouses situated at the base. These flaps protect the tower from environmental conditions such as snow, rain, etc. The purified air then comes out from these openings.
Thank you so much for being till the end.
Environmental pollution is an incurable disease. It can only be prevented. So today, through these presentations, let's dive into the innovations which are used to prevent pollution.
Hello everyone, I am Akshat Bhatt of class 10th B6. Today I will tell you about environment and the ways to prevent it from the continuous degradation.
What is environment? Anything around us that is living or non-living comprises the environment like these.
Now let's see its impacts on us. Our basic necessities such as food, medicines, water, oxygen and etc. comes through it. Our environment is being damaged by us with time. Some of the reasons are here. Deforestation, emission of industrial waste into air and water, fumes emitted by cars, usage of plastics which is non-biodegradable, overgrazing by cattle. This leads to exposition of soil cover and leads to land degradation. Land degradation due to mining activities. Now let's see how to conserve our environment.
Before this, we will first look at our homes, that how we keep our homes clean by mopping, sweeping and cleaning clothes and dishes. Now let's see that how can we clean our environment. By using clean energy sources such as LED, windmills, solar energy. Treatment of industrial waste before disposing into water and air.
Planting more trees to reduce air pollution. Reduce usage of plastic and use paper bags. Carpooling. Do not use cars for shorter distances and use public transports.
3 steps of conservation: reduce, reuse and recycle. For example, recycling paper so that no more trees can be cut. Now let us see our future if we continue to degrade our nature.
Now let's take a glance at our future after following these measures. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you and have a nice day.
morning everyone, my name is Srishti and today we are going to talk about the topic of bioremediation. This is a process where we use plants as a remedy for conserving our natural resources. Bioremediation is a process where we use biological organisms, mainly plants, to purify environmental pollutants like now we plant plants like peace lily, aloe vera, snake plants on roads as they help to improve the air quality. We also use plants like water hyacinth, duckweed, etc. which help in cleansing the water pollutants by absorbing them. Plants play an important role in the process of bioremediation as they absorb the chemicals and convert them into less toxic forms as they store them in above ground part of their cells or tissues in a reversible form. This is a bucket of polluted water in which we will keep some plants to perform the process of bioremediation. The plants in the bucket will allow the water to purify if kept untouched for some time. We can see that I have kept two samples of water. One is of polluted water and the other one is after the purification. We can clearly see the difference between the two of them. Now we are looking into our country's one of the successful example of bioremediation, the restoration of Hotchkiss Lake. The lake was treated as a sewage dump until two environmental scientists, Tarun Sebastian Nanda and Timpani Panja, took the initiative of the revival of the lake in 2017 as they constructed wetlands which worked as biofires. Major pollutants of the lake comprises of components like sodium, potassium, sulfate and chloride which makes the lake unfit for breeding, bathing and fishing purposes. The revival of Hotchkiss Lake was lengthy but it gave us beautiful results. As we know, it started in 2017 as Delhi's first citizen-led program. By the end of 2019, the lake covered around 425 meters square of land and it purified 2 million liters of water every day. After the successful restoration of the Hotchkiss Lake by the method of bioremediation, I think this process is best to prevent our rivers like the Hindon from water pollution.
Good morning everybody, my name is Sukha Satyagi of class 12th and I am here to present my topic which is carbon footprints. So what is a carbon footprint? A carbon footprint is the total amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted by our actions. The carbon footprint, for example, of a person living in the United States is 16 tons, which is one of the highest in the world. Now, I will show it to you how you can calculate your carbon footprints. To calculate your carbon footprints, we need a tool called the carbon calculator. So how will we be doing it? Just log on to this website called tatapower.com/sustainability for this carbon calculator. Now here, just put the month and the year as per your convenience. In my case, it is, suppose we put January of 2020. Total family members including yourself, in my case, it is 4. Now, we will put the quantity of petrol that we have used in a month. Suppose you use 10 liters. Diesel fuel I don't use. Auto LPGs I don't use. You can skip the things that you don't use. In this case, I don't use diesel fuels. LPG we can put to be 20. Taxis I don't use. Local bus, auto rickshaws, local trains. Now here in the domestic use, number of LPGs used for cooking. Suppose I use 10 cylinders. Amount of CNG used at home. Amount of electricity used at home. Suppose the electricity is 400 kilowatt hours. Calculating it, we got the my total emissions per month in terms of CO2 per month will be 280.70. My average annual carbon footprints in terms of CO2 comes out to be 3.37, which is very low, which is a good thing. And this is how, in this video, how you can calculate your carbon footprints. I'm sure you like it. Thank you and have a nice day.
Zero waste is a set of principles focused on waste prevention that encourages the redesign of resources life cycle so that all products are reused. The goal is for no trash to be sent to landfills or to the ocean. So here I am, Kajal Sharma of class 12th A3, spreading awareness about a zero waste lifestyle. Adopting a zero waste lifestyle is one of the most sustainable ways of living. So one can easily live a zero waste life by these simple changes in their day-to-day lifestyle. First is using a bamboo toothbrush. Yes, it is not only effective in cleaning your teeth but also lasts longer than any other plastic toothbrush. It is compostable, eco-friendly and much better than a plastic. Second is using eco-friendly neem wood comb. Now, these simple changes in the life to protect the environment are very essential. It is biodegradable and hence better than a plastic. Next is using steel straw. It is more hygienic as it comes with a steel cleaning brush so that you can always use them before and after the use. You can always carry your own and hence you will not contribute in producing plastic waste. Next, you can always carry your own steel water bottle so that you need not rely on plastic water bottle, which is also not good for the health and environment as well. Next is carrying a cotton or a jute bag when going outside for shopping. They are very convenient to use and are eco-friendly. Now these simple changes can be very good for the environment and human health as well. So I hope you enjoyed and will try to produce less plastic waste. Thank you for watching.
Hello everyone, I am Nushka Gupta from St. Teresa School, class 10B6. The theme of the biology exhibition is how to save environment and my topic is eco-bricks. In this video, you will learn everything about eco-bricks. So without wasting any time, let's get started.
So what an eco-brick actually is? It is same as the cement brick which are used for building houses, walls, gardens, etc. But the difference between the eco-brick and cement brick is that an eco-brick is eco-friendly and it helps the environment to get rid of the plastic waste. Eco-bricks are made up of plastic bottles which are filled with the plastic waste. How does the eco-bricks help the environment? Eco-brick prevents the plastic waste from disrupting the ecosystem as it seals the plastic away, preventing the buildup of toxic gases emitted during the degradation of the plastic such as methane. Eco-brick raises ecological consciousness since it demands time and dedication. It leads to the question on the use of plastic. It is also a low energy solution to the plastic and there are many more advantages of it. Eco-bricks are used to make many things such as furniture, walls and buildings. It allows communities and companies to get control of their plastic waste to create modular furniture, garden spaces, walls and even full-scale buildings.
Wait, the video is not over yet. Let me show you my eco-brick to you. So here is it. Though you can see that I have just poured the waste material in this plastic bottle. But remember, only the plastic material should go in. No type of metal, glass or any biodegradable waste should go into this. So to make your own eco-brick, you will need one plastic bottle, one wooden stick and some plastic waste. So first you will cut the plastic waste into such small pieces that they can go into this bottle easily. And with the wooden stick you will press them so that they can get easily packed into this plastic bottle. You will fill the plastic waste till the bottle is filled with it completely. And here is your eco brick ready. So hope you learned something from this video. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. I, Sophia Ahmed of class 10 P5 is here to introduce you with my topic, what is environmental pollution and how it affects us, plants, flora and fauna and even our mother earth. Let's continue our conversation.
All those abiotic and biotic things in which a person, plant or animal lives in is called an environment. But somehow the reckless use of these resources leads to environmental pollution. You all must be thinking what causes this pollution. There is not only a single cause but many of them. Let's start our conversation by discussing the pollutions we face. The deposition of solid or liquid waste materials on land or underground in such a manner that contaminates the soil and groundwater and threatens public health is known as land pollution. The major cause for land pollution is the factories which release harmful dry effluents on land, causing it to pollute. Open dumping of garbage has caused land pollution in cities. The land which is contaminated with toxic chemicals can lead to many health problems like cancer. Even the consumption of fruits and vegetables grown on the polluted land affects human health. The contamination of water bodies, usually as a result of human activities such as sewage, garbage and liquid waste of households and agricultural runs discharged into lakes and rivers, is called water pollution. These wastes contain harmful chemicals and toxins which make the water poisonous for aquatic animals and plants. Contaminated water can spread infectious diseases such as typhoid, cholera. Air pollution is a mixture of solid particles and gases in the air. Car emissions and chemical from factories causes air pollution. The health effects from air pollution are serious. 1/3 of deaths from stroke, lung cancer and heart disease are due to air pollution. So you see, it's not only the Mother Earth who always suffers. We, the living beings, suffers too. So let's pledge to control our activities which harm us, our future and the Mother Earth too. Thank you and hope you like it.
The greatest threat to the planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So, good morning to all. I, Kanika Verma, your host, welcomes you to this beautiful morning. As we know, ASP Industry is setting up a new plastic factory. So, let's see what's happening at the construction site.
As you can see that Puja is over and there is a stay order. So now there could be any further construction done. If they started the construction, they will have to pay a heavy penalty and it would be also reflect to their reputation. Jia, if something will happen, we will immediately report you.
Sure, Raghav. So let's have a debate to know this factory is beneficial for humans or good for environment. Let's debate. These are the contestants. Miss Charu, I would like you to start.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think factory is beneficial for the humans, as most of a country's population prefers to use the plastic in their day-to-day lives. So I think it is.
Just stop and listen to me. Just think about our nature, our environment, our Mother Earth.
What do you mean?
To construct the factory, we will cut the trees and...
What about the rivers, where the waste from the factories will be secreted?
The waste will be treated and it will not be secreted in the river. That's our promise.
You did these promises before making the previous factory as well. But we all know that they are not treated.
They are treated.
And what about the acid rain, which is harmful for humans as well as animals also?
Oh, wait. What do you mean by that? It's harmful for humans.
There will be acid rain. Then the water from the rain will fall into the water bodies. And then when the fishes will consume that water, they will also get infected.
When we will consume those fishes, we would also get infected, and in future it will become a disease and it will take place of COVID, and at last we are only going to suffer this.
So it would be better for you to not pick any other franchisee of your industry.
And I request you to understand what we want to convey.
We understood what you wanted to tell us. I will stop my further work, but still I have a condition that I will upgrade my previous running factories to increase its production.
And we will keep all the points in our mind that you have mentioned, and I hope that you will never get a chance to complain.
By this debate, we have got the solutions on which both the sides have agreed. So for today, I want to say goodbye to all, and we will meet tomorrow. Stay tuned.
In a nutshell, I want to conclude that if we will save the environment, it will be beneficial for you as well as the others. As we all know, during the pandemic time, many people suffered due to the decreased amount of oxygen. If we will plant more trees, it will help the whole world. I hope we all understand the importance of saving our environment.
Good morning everyone. My name is Siddharth Sahu of class 12th A3 and I am here to present my topic on disposal of used masks. Since corona has been started from China, the use of masks has been increased all over the world. It has been ubiquitous nowadays. As the cases are increasing in the world, people are getting awareness or weekends of fear, due to which the use of masks has been increased. As the use of masks has been increased, they are not disposed properly. As a result, the masks are being thrown on footpaths and roads. The most commonly used single-use masks are made up of plastic and a thin strip of metal. They pose a great threat to sanitizer workers as they are sacrificing their lives to keep us safe by sanitizing the areas, general public. As the sanitizing workers are not keeping in isolation, so public is also in a great threat. Next is the environment, then marine, animal and bird life. It has already been seen that masks are found in large number from the rivers, lakes, beaches. Since plastic has been a great threat from 20 years, similarly, the mask can also be a great threat in coming time. As huge amount of clinical waste is being produced, dramatically this heightens the risk. There are some dangers that the coronavirus will be spread to garbage collectors and others if the waste that may carry the infection are not handled properly. As there is no mechanism for collection and disposal of masks, so the individuals are burning up the mask and others have no option but to dump them in the garbage. Since single-use masks are being dumped by users with their household garbage, and that is being picked up by the waste pickers unknowingly. According to Human Ministry guidelines, patients, caregivers or close contacts under home quarantine are to be considered potentially infected, and the used mask should be disinfected with ordinary bleach solution 5% or sodium hypochlorite solution and then disposed of either by burning or deburial it. And in case of human care from suspected patients, biomedical waste should be collected separately in yellow bags and handed over to authorized waste collectors engaged by local bodies. And local bodies should also engage agents to pick up such waste either directly from quarantine houses or identified collection points. Now let us talk about the ideal method of disposal of masks. Masks that are used by the infected patients and the medical staff should be sterilized and heated at high temperature in dedicated facilities. Now let us talk about the steps to dispose of used masks. First, wash hands with soap, then remove the face mask. Then fold the used mask and make sure that the contaminated part faces inwards. Then fold the used mask further and roll it up. Then tie the ends together and wrap it in plastic. Then throw the bag in the dustbin and wash hands. Thank you and have a nice day.
The year 2021 and 2022 have been witnessing community health crisis due to COVID. The biggest precaution is the use of masks. N95 masks and cloth masks do not have a problem of disposal, but if disposal masks not being disposed of properly, they can create a huge problem. At every household, people buy packets of these masks and after every use, they throw them here and there. and these used masks can be a potential source of infection. So I thought of a way to dispose them off and to make something with it. Good morning everyone, I Anant Kumar Sagar of class 10th B2 is going to present you this activity. So let's start. Our first required material is used paper. Cut it into small pieces and soak it in water for 5 to 6 hours and grind it in a mixie to make a thick pulp. Our second material will be Multani Mitti. Soak it in water and cover with the lid to avoid evaporation of water. Our third material will be mask. Clean it and cut it into small pieces, then put it into sanitizer for disinfecting at least 5 to 6 hours. Now mix all the materials properly and try to make a thick dough out of them. After mixing, settle them in a container and sun dry them for 3 to 4 days by giving it your desired shape. After 3 to 4 days, the result will be solid and is ready to use after some creativity.
Although the trendy side of awareness of global warming has picked heat, only very recently human civilization have been doing this from a quite long time. So let's drive our attention towards the topic ancient wisdom.
Wishing everyone a bright and cheerful day. I am Punyavi and I am here to tell you some basic techniques through which water can be conserved. So here we go. Earlier, people made gods out of natural resources, thus conserved it religiously. Here are some basic mentions of the primitive idea of water conservation. Let's now have a peek into the world of early civilizations and their role in saving water. They introduced canals to the world for water transport. This is the Mesopotamian civilization's contribution to the world to protect water, the essence of life. Here we have something that India is proud of. Yes, the contribution that Indus Valley civilization has made to the development of mankind. From providing world-class sewage infrastructure to building tanks for water in desert region, they were quite intelligent. They introduced dams back in those days. They also made canals. Here we have the Egyptian civilization. They made mud brick reservoirs that are similar to wells found nowadays. Because of scarcity of water in Nile, they were dependent on flood water. Let us now find out some techniques that could be revived to save water in these times of overexploitation. Let us now talk of wells. They are a very integral part of Indian villages and the culture. On auspicious occasions, we worship wells. They are used since ancient times and have constantly evolved to prevent water seepage into the walls of it. So this is the term for bamboo drip irrigation. This is used in hill trio population of northeastern India. They have hollow bamboo sticks with a cut on the upper surface for rainwater too. They help water reach kilometers and are a natural way, thus preventing water from getting polluted. Now we have Baulis, also known as kunds, vav and step wells. Found since humans started grouping into civilizations, they progressed throughout ages to reach this final stage. They are open places with staircases to reach the water level. They were initially made in the Vedic times and were popularized and revived by Mughal rulers. One of the most famous Bauli is the Agrasen Ki Bauli in New Delhi. It works on sedimentation of muddy water. The last, yet not the least, are Johar or Pokhar. They have been used all the time since 1500 BC and their making peaked during the medieval period. They are found in hot and dry regions of India like Rajasthan. They work on capturing rainwater and becoming a reserve throughout the year. They also provided a relief after the 1837 and 1990 famine. These are some other ancient structures that safeguard water since years and are still used in many places. They are Zing, Panamkeni, Tanka, Bandhi, etc. Most structures worked on simple wells and canals with modifications based on the environment of the region. Paintings from medieval India too suggest that life was pleasant and environment friendly back those days. Let us not forget, all techniques do not cope up with the recent needs of humans. The ones mentioned in this video are those that can provide immense help in these times as well, and are somewhat used by people. People are often seen dancing around these structures after rain showers to celebrate the homecoming of monsoon and ultimately the arrival of water to their needs. Thank you for watching. Hope you found it informative.
Good morning everyone. I am Priyanshi Chauhan.
And I am Himani Joshi. And today we are going to introduce you to our topic sacred groves.
Can you think of some special patches of land that prohibits using their twigs and branches? They are known as sacred groves.
Nature worship is an ancient Indian tradition, and all forms of life have been considered as sacred. Each sacred grove has a reciting deity and folklores associated with it. The taboos, rituals, and local beliefs, supplemented with mystic folk tales associated with the grove, has been the prime reason for the preservation of these groves. Trees such as banyan, peepal, neem, and tamarind are considered to be a abode of spirits and worshipped. In many sacred groves, people make offering to God in fulfillment of their vows. Traditional sacred groves. It is the place where the village deity resides, who is represented by an elementary symbol. Temple groves. Here, a grove is created around the temple and conserved. Groves around the burial and cremation ground.
Himachal Pradesh is the state with the highest number of sacred groves. Interestingly, Manipur stands 8th rank among all Indian states and 1st rank for Northeast India for having the highest number of sacred groves.
Distribution of sacred groves across the globe. Estonia in Europe is the country with highest number of sacred groves, and Somalia in Africa is the country with no sacred groves. Traveling to Somalia isn't considered safe either. Significance of sacred groves. The sacred groves shelter medicinal plants of great value not only for the primary health care of the village communities but also for the modern pharmacopoeia. They act as micro watersheds and meet the drinking and irrigation water needs of the local communities. Some sacred groves are owned and managed traditionally by family inheritance, others by local communities and village trustees or state-owned institutions.
Vedic wisdom declares all physical bodies to be made up of 5 elements called Panch Mahabhutas, named water, air, wind, fire, and space. These 5 elements has been worshipped since ages. The elements nourish and nurture us and in turn has been able to sustain life on earth since millions of years. So let's pay our gratitude to Mother Nature by taking small initiatives and steps to keep it enriched and beautiful. Thank you.